This is what is happening right now. Francafrique, France in Africa, because of the coup in Niger, is under spotlight and under scrutiny. The interests of France, not just in West Africa, but almost all across Africa, is in jeopardy. Shockingly, the youths in French Cameroon are seemingly not being proactive like we would see other Faso taking responsibility and charting the course of their future. But this is what is beautiful. The beautiful part of this whole thing is the Malians kicked out France and the French or the French mercenaries who thought that they could get refuge in Niger. Right now, they are not only being kicked, they're trying to make empty blabbing. France is saying that a treaty that was signed by their so-called democratic government cannot be nullified by those whom they are assuming or insinuating that are terrorists or rebels. In fact, Ouattara said these guys have kidnapped, but other media houses are saying that they have detained. Why all of this is happening, we find these juntas solidifying their autonomy and creating a cabinet. Well, my concern here, in conclusion, Barrister Mbesa, is if this all goes the direction that it is going right now, how instrumental will the involvement of President Sako be? Barrister Tim, please, let's conclude on that.
Now, what we have to look for in this debate is what is affecting France. The French hegemony is being disentangled. They are not fighting it because they love. They are fighting for the economic interest. They are fighting for what they get out of there. And in fact, in the whole Wavis Bay area, not Wavis Bay, Guinea, they have a dominant economy. They control even the ports. But and so we know that in the world you have this thing they call the Bolloré. The Bolloré controls almost all the ports. They go the shipping routes.
Bolloré, yes.
Yes, they control those things right to Abidjan. And so they are not fighting because they want to fight. No, they announced of a contract cannot be resigned. It's not working. Because even if they don't resign it and there's war going on there, you're not going to ship those things again. You're not going to ship those things as the French think. So once the French interest unravels, a lot is put at issue. But as I also forgot to mention, you see, the importance of Ambazonia as far as Guinea is concerned in maritime traffic is more than that. You see, in the whole Gulf of Guinea, if the Limbe, the Victoria Deep Sea Port were built, it will be the whole that Gulf of the Gulf port is not like that. It's like Douala. And so if we have that deep sea port with the facilities that no other country has in the region, we control a lot economically. Not just because before they anchor there, if they want to pass through and we're not the allies, we can stop them. And so that's the fight for their survival, to export what we not yes freely, unchallenged, back home. That's the interest of the Americans for now. They are trying to protect their neighbor, their ally, the French. But there's also much you can do to an ally. All these agreements we have talked about that were entered into before independence even, the Americans know that. They knew those things, but they kept quiet. As long as Africans did not raise their fingers, they kept quiet. So, well, Nigeria is a zone of influence. Do what you want to do there. But now that things are unraveling, the Americans can no longer keep quiet. Because, let me said, if you hear the Italian Prime Minister saying this, you think you learned it today? Italian Prime Minister, Italy has done all those things. But when they see things going down, they come and say, well, we're not even part of you again. And that's the problem with the French. The French are looking for new allies. Wagner is coming in. Nobody can pretend that Wagner is part of NATO. Nobody can pretend that Wagner is. And so, as he pays the price, dictates the tune. Wagner is a satellite of Russia. Russia may not need all those minerals from them because they have them. You have control over what you do to hurt them or not. I've seen this debate around whether they indicted Mr. Putin, the ICC or not. Let me just say this in passing. Indicting somebody at the ICC is only one step. The ability to arrest the indicted person
and try
and send them is another one. I'll be surprised if some country will go and catch Mr. Putin and say, I'm sending you to the Hague for trial.
But I think
that's already a victory for them.
With you, Barrister Team. I want to confirm with you that that is bluffing, because we've seen Putin visit many countries in the world, the supposed indictment. Even as we speak, we're getting unconfirmed reports, I would say speculations, but this is someone hinting us from Kremlin that Mr. Putin is planning to be in the G20. You know, since the invasion of Russia, he has not visited that area. And so he's planning that unwaveringly, unapologetically. And I can't wait to see Putin, Biden in the same room again come September. Now, just conclude very briefly. You have approximately a minute.
Okay,
so
they might not even be in the same room. I think in one of my earlier presentations here, we talked about Southern Sudan. I said Bashir was indicted by the ICC over Darfur. He had a sealed indictment. He didn't know. Until he went to South Africa on an official visit, and it was on sale. And they asked the South African government to arrest Bashir and send him to the ICC. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's a diplomatic thing that I will not do. And they allowed Bashir away. So indicting Mr. Putin, as I think it was pushed by the Americans or NATO to save their strategic and political interests, is not going to be a solution to the problem. But if we had our independent position in the Gulf of Guinea, no matter how small we look geographically, we're even bigger than Togo, which is in the Gulf of Guinea. We're in Equatorial Guinea, which is in the Gulf of Guinea. Our influence will be terrible depending on the friends we make and who are our partners. So, President Sako, touching base with the Americans is as strategically important as one can imagine. Because the Americans will realize, they are realizing that the French hegemony is crumbling. Do they still need to have an interest? Do they need to have a foothold in this region called the Gulf of Guinea? Of course, yes. Can they effectively, again, depend on France as they've been doing for the past 50, 60, 70 years? No, they cannot. So they look for new allies and we open our hands and say, we're here. There's no way that we shall be allies in that intimacy with France. Even the open relationship with us, we shall be friends in business. We shall not be trusted friends in any other thing. And so we approach the Americans and open their eyes that the French hegemony in the Gulf of Guinea is crumbling. The Russians are seeking a foothold. Why not you, the United States, seek your own foothold as an individual country, not as an ally of France? And if you want to do it, we're here to support you. Thank you.
That's indeed
just
amazing.
Just 1 second, Paddy.
I think we've buttressed.
Just 1 second, Paddy.
Okay, very briefly, Barrister.
Yes, the Russians have wanted giving signals to the West that they mean business. This morning, two very big nuclear aircrafts, very large nuclear, I think they're the largest, landed in South Africa. And South Africa is calling, because South Africa has already invited many countries to come and talk about a single currency that will surpass the dollar. All these are bad signs for the West. These are signs that the West, America must sit up. America must, like my colleague has just said, America must have its own foothold. Because if America loses South Africa, loses Nigeria, loses all the big countries in Africa, what will be left of America on the continent of Africa? It doesn't mean they are not interested in Africa.
That is the biggest question we have been asking, and I'm sure behind the mind of President Sako, that's what he's thinking as he approaches the White House. We've seen the president with his diplomacy, flexible. I would say he's very dynamic in his diplomatic approach. Just last week, during the interview with the U.S. media, for the first time, I saw a president addressing the West like never before. And like I analyzed last Saturday, you saw a president who was speaking with anger, the urgency, you could feel it. And I'd like to go through that tweet again. So instrumental. In his own words, he would write on Twitter, or call it X. He says, I spent the week briefing key congressional staffers of members on White House. I'm sure the House prop GOP there is the White House, and approach them about the latest from Cameroon and Southern Cameroons. And I called on the U.S. Congress to urge Secretary Blinken to lead talks between the two sides without precondition.